Hello guys, this is Roland. Welcome to this segment on working with data. Alright, so here today we will be working on some of those tips on data cleaning, and I will share with you 7 tips to get you started on cleaning the data you have collected. Okay, so for this tutorial we're going to break it into small installments and basically 3 installments, and here in the first installment I'm going to share with you some of those tips on cleaning up white spaces and selecting X number of characters, whether it's from the right or from the left of your data entry, and at the same time to convert numbers stored in text into numbers. Okay, so what exactly does that mean? I know it sounds a mouthful, but don't worry, we're going to walk you through some of those data using the Excel spreadsheet. So let's take a look at the Excel spreadsheet right here. Okay, so this is the raw data file that we have gotten and we'll be working on. So let me just walk you through very quickly what are some of those fields and some of those columns. The first column right here, you can see that's the student ID number. Some of them includes a prefix P in front of it. Some of them are just numericals. Okay, so what does it mean by extra white space? If you look at this, actually there are 2 white spaces after 22 right here. So if it's not removed, then yeah, sometimes Excel might pick it up differently. Okay, so on the second column here we have got student class, and if we do a drop down box, we have got total of 4 classes. Seems like we don't have any blank cells right here, so we are pretty much okay with this. Then we have a column on level of understanding. Basically, it's a Likert scale kind of questions that get students to put in or indicate their level of understanding after a session or a topic. And there's a readiness check. Readiness check may be at the beginning of the lesson, where students will input how ready they are, whether they have done their pre-classroom activities and preparations. Okay, then at some point we have a graded quiz, and that's where students attempted a quiz. Some of them didn't capture any, so we will fix that later on, and some of them have got a 0 right here. Then this column here asks students which are areas in which they will require clarifications. Well, I don't know what prostista means. Fungi, yeah, bacteria, yeast production, etc. As you can see, some of them are in caps, some of them are in just all small caps. We'll sort that out later. And last but not least, we have a column right here that talks about the different methods which students have deployed to help them improve their understanding on a particular topic, whether it's asking questions, consultations, memorizing, or developing of mind maps. Okay, so having said that, we also have another data sheet. Of course, in this very first installment of the tutorial, we will not be working on that data sheet. We will look into that later on when we start to deploy a function called VLOOKUP. So in this extra data sheet here, we have student academic data. Basically has the student ID all here, their mode of admission into the institutions, as well as whether they have got biology as prerequisite, or have they taken biology before. N meaning no, Y meaning yes, maybe in their secondary schools. Okay, so let's start to work on the first 3 tips, shortcut keys that we need to do here. And those first 3 tips is first getting rid of the white spaces, select X number of characters from right or left, and convert numbers.as text into numbers. Okay, so that has got to do with our student ID. As you can see, the student ID is kind of messed up. What I like to do most of the time is I like to create an extra column so that we don't mess up the original raw data file until, of course, we are so confident that, hey, this has been totally cleaned up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to type in student ID on the new column that I've created, and to trim that space, I'm going to use, to remove that white space, I'm going to use this function called trim. So I'll hit the equal key, and then I'll type in trim, open bracket, and take reference. take reference to cell number A2, and that's the cell that we're going to trim, and we hit enter. Okay, after which we will drag that whole series. Of course, if let's say you find that a little bit too troublesome, just do a double click and then it will replicate the command throughout the entire left column. Alright, so now you see all the extra spaces. Previously we have some extra spaces here. It has all been trimmed off. Okay, it's all been trimmed off. But do take note that after this command has been applied, after this function has been applied, it is still recognized as a formula. So what I always like to do is I like to hold on to my shift and control key. I press the down arrow to select the entire range of data. Alright, do a control C to copy them, and then to paste as numbers. So paste special if you want. Alright, paste special, and then you just paste as values. Okay, paste as values, and that will remove all the formula. What you can see here right now is just values itself. Alright, now this is what we have done with the trim function. So let's take a look at tip number 2. Tip number 2 says let's select X number of characters from right or left of a cell. Okay, so how does this work? If you notice on the student ID, some of them have the prefix called P, some of them doesn't. Alright, so how do we standardize this piece of data? What I'm going to do here is I'm going to create another new column. Okay, here I'm going to put in again student ID. So as you can see, student ID requires a few layers of cleaning, right? And I'm going to do a function here called write. Okay, that means I will count from the right X number of characters that I will extract, and then I'll keep those X number of characters. We know that, so we are going to put in write RIGHT open bracket. Okay, take reference from this particular cell, and then we do a comma, number of characters. So how many number of characters do we want to select? We know the student ID has got a total of 7 characters, not including the prefix, okay, not including the P. Say we want to ignore the P, alright, we just want the last 7 digits of the student ID, so here we have just put in 7, okay, and we hit enter. And let's do double click here so that it follows through with all the formula. Okay, and here we go. All the prefix, all the P's are already removed. So all of them removed, and here we have our new student ID. Okay, which is all removed, which is the last 7 character of the cell in front of us. What I want to do here is, of course, again, I'm going to do a copy, and then I'm going to just paste values over this. Alright, so I know that all these are values, they are no longer formulas. Okay, so are we good now? We have looked at some of those first 2 features. The very first one is getting rid of the white spaces. We use the formula called trim, equals TRIM, trim. Okay, the second formula, we select X number of characters from the right or the left. In this situation, we select the last 7 digits. That means from the right, we enter equals right, take the cell reference, and then we key in 7. Alright, that's 7 characters. What we're going to do now is to convert numbers stored as text into numbers. Okay, so let's take a look at our student ID. Right, this student ID is a string of 7 digits and they are numbers. But however, if you look at this little remark right here, it says the number in this cell is formatted as text or preceded by an apostrophe. So that means to say this, although it is numbers, it's behaving like a text. Alright, and we don't want that because for text, it doesn't allow us to make computations. Not that we are going to do computations on student ID, but since they are numbers, they should behave like numbers, okay? So what we're going to do here is we will just do a simple formula called text to column. Okay, so let's select, hit the Control Shift key, and then we hit down arrow. We will select this whole range in which we want to apply text to column. After we have selected them, let's go up to data, and then we go text to column. Let's hit text to column, and it will say delimited fixed width. Okay, we will go with delimited, and then we'll hit next, and then it says delimiter tab or not. Well, it doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to deselect all. Let's try out and see what happens, and then we click next, and it says general text date. Just keep it as general. I hit finish button. Now if you see this, that little note right here was gone. Previously there was this little green triangle on the top right corner, top left corner, sorry. Now it's gone. So it says that now my student IDs are behaving like numbers. So I've converted text into numbers. Alright, numbers that appears to be text into numbers. So now that this is our final list of student ID, what I will usually do as best practice, if this is what we want, I'm just going to remove the first two columns, okay, and to keep this as our final student ID column. Alright, so let's do a very quick recap. We have done 3 out of the 7 tips. The very first one is getting rid of white spaces, and we used a function called trim. The second one is selecting X number of characters from the right or the left. In this case, we used selecting 7 digits from the right. We used the equals right function. And last but not least, we use columns to text by converting numbers stored as text into its original number format. Alright, so this is the very first installment. Please download that raw data file and give it a try, because yeah, you never know, it might be just as easy as it seems. Okay, so once you're good with the first 3 bits, 3 tips that I've shared with you, head on to the very next installment.